thought, a theme that seems to be coming up pretty consistently with teams, over the years, and it's something I talk about on individual consults. So I thought this was a perfect time to kind of bring to the fore thinking about involving those younger family members in family education and support services, either in a formal kind of way or a more informal kind of way. Mostly geared towards thinking of siblings of the client in first, but also we have, younger children in the home who are the actual children of the client. So just taking a quick look at that today. And of course, you can always reach out to me and I have extra resources. All of these bullet points have sub-bullet points that I took out for time-saving reasons, but happy to share those additional informational points and resources and references for you. So today I wanted to talk about some common needs of younger family members and really thinking about this based on their age or their developmental level, talking about ways we as teams can really proactively and planfully include these younger family members in services for our FEP teams, and also talking about ways team members can assist adults in their lives with supporting and providing age-appropriate information to these younger family members. So those are our goals for today. As we're talking, I think it's always helpful to have a family or two in mind to kind of bring the information to life. So think about your current first families. How many of them have younger children in the home? And what do we know about them? What do they contribute to the dynamic in the family? How often are they involved in services? To what degree? And what kinds of ways are they involved? So just keep these questions in mind as you think about a family or two as we're talking today. So sometimes thinking about involving younger siblings, our manualized treatments are really geared towards 16-ish and up. And so, thinking about how to planfully involve them. And I always say, start at ground zero, think about where to begin. And that really is about thinking systemically. And that's something that, you hear me say often. It's something that cuts across even when there aren't younger children in the home. But it's very, very important to think systemically when we're working with individual first clients. To think about how they function within their larger system, their environment, and especially those people around them, because what impacts the individual impacts the system and vice versa. Whatever's happening in those around them is really having a direct impact on that individual client. And this definitely includes younger siblings. And when we're thinking about when we're thinking systemically and we're thinking in a systems kind of way, things that we all should always be keeping in mind when we're making recommendations, especially is, what are the cultural factors, belief systems, value systems, spirituality, heritage, traditions that we really need a firm grasp of and understanding of so that we can make recommendations that are going to fit for the system. And also, when we're including younger children in the home, it's about, what age do they fall, sort of what number in line are they if it's a sibling, what developmental stage are they so that we can gear information and target it for those younger siblings. So although there are some pretty stark differences across the age spans for what kind of information and how it's delivered, there are some themes that cut across them all. Each age group kind of needs developmentally appropriate information, obviously, and we'll get into that a bit. They also need support for normative development. These include things like access to education, feelings of safety, having physical and emotional needs met, having opportunities for fun and a chance to individuate as they age, all those kinds of opportunities. So keeping that in mind when you're working with these children or the adults in the home. Also very importantly is sort of a listening, non-judgmental, non-reactive ear from the adults in the home. So when they have questions that may be the tough ones, or when they have feelings that they share that maybe make the adults in the home feel a little uncomfortable or it's a little hurtful, just being able to respond appropriately. And the way to do that is through coaching by all of you to be prepared for those kinds of tough conversations. Across ages, we need to be honest with these younger children, reassuring them, really ensuring that they feel safe in setting limits and boundaries so that they're, always feeling safe, always getting their needs met. So those common things that cut across the age groups. But as we dig down a little deeper and we're thinking, chunked together by age group, if we think about preschoolers and what we know about these little ones, what is it that they need? How do they respond? How do teachers do this in classes? And, what it really comes down to is they need fewer details and less information than their older counterparts. They also need this kind of information delivered in simple terms, things that are really tangible to them, something they can understand. And, this age group really is responsive to stories and pictures and things that bring what's happening for them to life, something they can attach to. So helping adults in the home or in your work with involving these younger children, keeping that in mind about how stories and pictures can really be powerful with these youngsters. They also focus on things that they can see. So if they see an unusual physical experience, somebody having an emotional response that's visibly upset, some kind of an odd or uncomfortable behavior, those are the things that they are most responsive to. And those are the things that are going to need addressed in conversations with them. And these young ones really require a great deal of reassurance for safety of themselves and those that they care about. When we get a little bit older, so that sort of elementary school age bracket, they're going to want a little bit more specific information. They're going to be more open to asking different types of questions. And these questions may be things that are more like, why is daddy crying? Or, why is sister talking to herself? So the questions are a bit more specific and direct, but still require less information than maybe what you're going to give to teenagers. They can express their feelings a bit more than the preschoolers. They're able to kind of attach feelings and emotions to their concerns. And again, those concerns about safety to self and others close to them are significant for the elementary school age kids. When working with these younger children, these elementary school age kids, or when coaching parents to work with them, really telling them information that's simple, that's honest, but it's also direct, pretty straightforward. It's practical, things that are applicable to them. We want to reassure their concerns and validate all those feelings. And shorter discussions and multiple conversations over time seem to land better with these kids. Teenagers, we all know teenagers. That's, the cadre mostly that we hit, teenage and transitional age youth. Working with them, they typically talk when they're ready on their terms. So, finding a time when they're feeling safe and supported and ready to talk about things, they're going to seek out more detailed information and they're going to ask more difficult questions. So when working with adults in the home, especially to get them prepared for having these difficult talks with teenagers, making sure that, you have an idea, and I have lists of questions and things like that if anybody ever wants that information, but things that, are common questions that teenagers will seek out information about so that people are ready to have those conversations with the teens in their home. Likely, we all know teenagers, they've heard a lot through social media, through media from their friends. Their friends' opinions matter more than the families most of the time for this age group. So we really need to do some digging, or the adults in the home need to do some digging about what is it that you already know? What is it that you've already heard, to make sure that we're correcting any kind of misinformation or misconceptions about what's happening. Teenagers, unsurprisingly, respond best to open dialogue. They're not big fans of lectures or structured kinds of conversations. So to have that back and forth open communication where they can ask questions, you ask questions of them. Literature, so that they can take it with them, set it on their nightstand and come back to it when they're feeling more ready. They can digest it in smaller pieces that way. And encouraging them to really talk with other people in their lives who they feel safe and comfortable and supported by, a coach, a teacher, a guidance counselor, just so they have resources outside of the home and a safe place to land if they're feeling stressed and they don't feel quite comfortable talking to people in the home yet. So really being able to encourage that. So these kinds of common reactions or emotional responses are ones that may look different based on the age group, but the sort of undercurrent of what they look like is pretty similar. So, you have some anger that these younger children in the home are experiencing, sometimes getting into trouble, acting out. Anger can be directed inward where they're becoming more depressed, or outward where they're reacting and responding to siblings and mental health professionals or teachers in sort of an angry or irritable kind of way. Hurt and envy and resentment is pretty common, especially when it's a sibling who has a first episode of psychosis that's really engaged in treatment, because oftentimes the family surrounds that person. They become the focal point. Many of the activities of the family have to work around the needs of that person. And so there can be a little bit of resentment or tension when all the focus is on that one person and there seems to be less time for the other children in the home. So something to keep in mind and to encourage parents to keep in mind, or other adults in the home. Senses of loss or sorrow or grief, mourning for the loved one. mourning for the relationship that they had, or fears that that relationship won't go back to how it was before. Lots of guilt, especially survivor guilt with siblings. Why wasn't it me? Why don't I have something too? The common ones that we all would expect: shame, sadness, embarrassment, confusion. Other ones are feeling like I have to be the well child if I just behave better, if I just get the perfect grades, if I just do exactly what I'm told all the time, things will get better, things will improve. And that's a whole lot of pressure for these kids to be putting on themselves, or feeling like, I need to be the stable point. I need to be the one that's there and open and ready to help anybody in the family. So that's a big consideration across the ages, and what it looks like will look different within the age groups. Fear and worry are probably the two biggest, that come up with these across age groups. There's worries for their loved one, worries for their other loved ones who maybe aren't the first episode client, but also worried for themselves and their future. I think there's a common misperception that this is contagious is a word that the kids use often, and fear based around, I know that, I'm at higher risk. Does that mean that I'll develop the same condition? I know he's a couple years older than me if he's my sibling. So fears for what their futures may hold for them. A tough one is they want to know when their loved one is going to be better. And we don't have an answer for that, but we do have reassurance that you've found, they found the best treatment possible. They found this team that wraps around them. We're intervening early. And so giving them hope. And I think that's the most powerful tool you can give to these families, including the younger children, is hope for improvement. But that's a tough one because we don't always have the magic ball where we can answer, exactly when somebody will be feeling better. Lots of blame, that kids blame themselves. If I would have just gotten an A in that class, if I wouldn't have been so hard on mommy, or if I would have just cleaned my room, things would have been better. And so again, that reassurance that, it's nobody's fault. No one is to blame. You're not responsible for your loved one's illness or for your loved one's wellness. There are a lot of things that kids can do to be supportive of their loved one. We won't get into that so much today, but I have that information to share with you if anybody's interested. And as we move forward on our consults together as individual teams, that's definitely an area we can flesh out. But making sure that that it's definitely an important piece that children understand that there are some things to do so that they don't feel so helpless or feel like they have nothing to contribute. Obviously reassuring them that they're not alone, that peer family experience and that peer experience is important across the lifespan, no matter if we're talking about younger children to adults. And so really encouraging them to seek out others or to help them connect with others, and assuring them that, again, they have the right to feel safe. So though there are lots of commonalities in kids, regardless of what relationship, if it's a sibling or the child of an adult client, there are commonalities, but there are also some pretty important differences to consider. If you're thinking about the child of an individual in first, the level of anxiety and fear may be higher because that is their safe place and their safe place to land. And so if that person isn't feeling too well, there's a lot of fear about what's going to happen to me, what's going to happen to them. They're dependent on that person. They also may be more likely to take on the role of the parent, taking care of younger children, taking on more household chores. And so those things to be aware of. But if you have, we touched on the sibling ones a bit, that, the resentment or the frustration that, they're not getting as much attention. So you might see the reactivity of them or behaviors kind of escalate so that they start to get some of that attention, or that well child role. I just need to be the one who does exactly as I'm told when I'm told. And as you move forward in your work, things to think about, how often to involve younger siblings, in what ways, what will that look like, to what degree do you involve them? It's going to really look different for every individual family, and it's going to look different over time, right? So as these children grow and develop, they might be able to include them in sessions more frequently. But, some of the things are that you would be considering when you're figuring out how often to involve them or in what ways are, what's the need of that individual family system? What are the dynamics in that family? What ages and developmental stages are they? Younger kids won't need to be as involved as frequently. And they might do better getting the support and resources from home. And what are the client preferences, most importantly? What is their level of comfort with this involvement? So just a couple things, thinking through as a team, we've talked about it kind of throughout, but keep your eyes and ears open, sort of assessing the needs, keep your ear to the ground. If you're hearing that one of the younger children are struggling, kind of talk with the adults in the home to see what those needs may be, what might be happening, what might be going on. Obviously, thinking systemically, being proactive, being flexible. Whenever we're involving younger children, we have to be pretty flexible and they keep us on our toes. And then inquiring and assessing often for what those needs might be. And there's other considerations, is children's services involved? Is the younger children in other services? Is there a safety question? How comfortable is the client with the involvement? Other things that you can do, when you're including them in sessions, just be available to them, have age appropriate or developmentally appropriate information at the ready. Ask them questions and model for the adults in the home how to have these kinds of conversations. Ask them how they're feeling about what happened or what is happening. Encourage them to ask you questions. Those are very important strategies or techniques that can go a long way with these, especially the younger ones. And, you have an opportunity to model that for the adults in the home. And encouraging them, the adults in the home, to help, we really have to ensure that the adults know how important it is that they're having these conversations with the younger children in the home. We need to reinforce that, providing them with necessary information, questions that may be asked, really being their coaches for these kinds of conversations. Again, I have that information if anybody is interested. And then encouraging them to communicate in a straightforward, age-appropriate manner. And helping the adults in the home to know what sort of signs to look out for that the younger child might be in distress or in need of some additional support. So obviously, as we wrap up, knowing your resources, I've included a couple here that are really great. If you go on these sites, they have lots of breakdowns. I pulled much of the information from today from these. Your local NAMI chapters will often have support for younger children, either children of clients, children who are experiencing mental health issues themselves, or siblings. Where they have specialized programming where they're able to do some fun activities for free through the support of NAMI. So next steps for us, obviously, you can reach out to me anytime. We'll continue these talks in more detail during our individual consults, but take a look at the resources, start providing them to families, start considering what it might look like if you were to involve these younger kids in the sessions. And so as we move forward today, how might some of these things apply to the families that you see? And I know we're not doing introductions in the same way, but if anybody has sort of an anecdote to share about a time when they involved somebody younger in the family in services, how that made an impact on the treatment and outcomes for the family. So thank you for your time, everyone.